Alright guys, how's it going? So welcome back to the Scrumpy Kiwi, and this video is going to be sort of going to touch on a video I did a couple of weeks ago called the Guilliman Heresy. And it was my idea, my theory on where the current storyline of Warhammer 40k is going to be going in 8th edition. And I sort of basically, as a way of sort of explaining the poignancy of the Primaris Marines being, appearing, how they would be affecting the storyline, what their sort of the outcome of their presence would be. And I said that perhaps this is going to be the beginning, sort of, the first few steps towards a new Imperial Civil War. The Imperium against itself, torn into two factions. Those who perhaps feel that Roboute Guilliman has gone too far, that he's overstepped his bounds as Lord Commander of the Imperium and as one of the sons of the Emperor. And another side that is, very loyal to him, probably mainly backed by the Ultramarines and any successors of theirs, as well as other forces who feel that, he is, he's doing the Emperor's work. So, and like I say, that was a very basic sort of summary of what I came up with. And the theories, I've always had the idea, I've been sort of, talking to other people about it, and we've sort of, thrown it, back and forth. And then a couple of days ago, we saw the second wave of 8th edition models, which will be coming out soon. And that was, we saw, a Primaris Captain, a Primaris Librarian, as well as a unit called the Reavers, the Primaris Reavers. And they, for all accounts, are scouts for the Primaris Marines. However, two things differentiate them from the ordinary Space Marine scout, and that's excluding being a Primaris Marine. The first was a summary of what they are about, which was, attached to them, that was put out by Games Workshop itself. And I'm paraphrasing here, but this is essentially what it said. Their speciality is not just stealth, but terror. And the second thing was the design of their face masks. All of them had either a full helm, or at least half a, sort of a rebreather, which had a stylized sort of skull visage on it. And I immediately looked at that and I went, well, isn't that very Night Lords? Isn't that very Night Lords indeed? And that made me immediately think back to what I'd been saying about the Guilliman Heresy and how that could possibly evolve into something, a legitimate thing in the storyline. I looked at those models and, and that description of them, and I thought, wow. Is this almost a sort of a sly, tip of the hat to the idea that Belisarius Cawl not only did get his hands on the traitor Primarch's gene seed when creating the Primaris Marines, but against the wishes of Roboute Guilliman, used that traitorous stock of gene seed, and of course this specifically being Konrad Kurz's gene seed. And for me personally, I think this was an intentionally done. This has been intentionally done, set up, and the implication here, in my mind, is very much them saying, there is something going on beneath the surface here. You are getting all these lovely toys. They're great. They're wonderful. But there is something that will be coming that is going to have ramifications. I feel that at this time, within the Imperium, within the world of Warhammer 40k, with so much turmoil in the galaxy, the real icing on the cake, the cherry on top, would be for the Imperium to be torn in half. And if you look, the Imperium is at the moment very much torn in half by the warp rift that split the galaxy basically in half. It would be great for that very literal symbolism of an Imperium torn in half to actually become an Imperium torn in half, and you could see, sort of two bastions with opposing views forming on either side of this rift. And like I say, we can all go, well, wearing a skull on the mast, doing that. There are other chapters that do that sort of thing. This isn't the first chapter to perhaps, take on some sort of rather, symbolic, whatever on their armor as a form of, perhaps intimidation or something like that. But it was the wording of that thing, not just stealth. These aren't just, snipers or, soldiers who specialize in sort of deep cover operations or sort of special operations, stuff like that. These aren't necessarily completely Space Marines in training. These guys, they're also about close combat. That was also mentioned as well. They're about close combat. They are about stealth, but they're about sowing terror. And I've never heard... Well, I've heard of Space Marines sowing terror. We all know that Space Marines are a very imposing force to face, and if you are an enemy of the Imperium, seeing those, the sort of the trails through the atmosphere of, a mass drop pod assault is probably the last thing you want to see. It's going to definitely ruin your day. But Space Marines, normally they're meant to be like these beacons of glory and sort of, and hope, perhaps, they're sort of, the Emperor's angels. To see them on the battlefield is kind of like okay, maybe it's not that bad. Maybe we've been saved. But to sow terror specifically is it almost runs counter, really, to what the Space Marines are about. Space Marines have always been, very honourable, very much about meeting the enemy head on. There are the exceptions, of course. We know the Raven Guard and their various successors, etc., etc. But for the Night Lords, it was about, it was about appearing out of nowhere and just tearing the enemy to pieces and sending messages back to those who survived, letting perhaps a couple people get away so that they could go back to where they came from and tell these horrifying stories. It was about, blaring the sounds of the tortured and the dying across a planet before a battle in order to just mentally decimate, the integrity of, of the opposition. And it'll be very interesting to see some more background on these guys, because, like I say, this idea that, Belisarius Cawl, who has been alive for 10,000 years, who in the fluff at the moment is being described as kind of a radical, he's a little bit unhinged, he's kind of, the idea is being placed there that he's not really, he's sowing the line at the moment, but he's really eager to perhaps try and, go off at some tangents and play around with some things. Whilst I accept that people aren't happy with him or with, this sort of this new fluff that's been brought out, I think Games Workshop are so determined to stay true to this course. Is, of course, sales, new stuff makes money, but it's also because they have got very big plans for the future of 40k, and I think we will be seeing a new civil war within the Imperium. I don't think it's going to be soon. I think we're going to see, I would say it's certainly not going to be happening within this year, between this, say, by next summer. I don't think we'll have seen it. I think we'll have seen, again, perhaps some more hints here and there. I think there are going to be more loyalist Primarchs being brought back into the mix. There's going to be more traitor Primarchs being brought back into the mix. But the big thing here, the core idea, I think, is that we are bringing these big personalities back into the mix, all who have some very opposing ideas. The Lion, Leman Russ, Dawn, Guilliman, Korax, maybe not Ferrus Manus, Jagatai Khan. Ferrus Manus could be potentially the leader of the Legion of the Damned, if again rumours are correct, but that's another topic for another video. But these, like I say, these loyalist Primarchs who've been brought back together, very strong opposing opinions. Could we be seeing, like I say, Guilliman, as far as he's concerned, may learn the truth, may learn that Cawl has used Traitor Primarch gene seed in the creation of some of the Primaris Marines, and maybe like, listen, you know, they work for me, they work for the Imperium. Keep an eye on them. We've made them more resistant to chaos. Perhaps they will work out for us. At the moment, he's kind of not got a lot of options on, you know, he's got this whole army of brand new Space Marines. He kind of needs them because the galaxy's in pieces. But you may find the more traditionalist, staunch supporters of, you know, the pre-heresy Imperium may very much be like, nah, this is just too much. This is way outside of what our father would have wanted. And you'll see these factions then begin to form. Likewise, you know, the Chaos Primarchs would be all over trying to sow, you know, discontent amongst any loyalist Primarchs. They would not want to see, they don't want to see one back, let alone more than one. So, like I say, we could be seeing, you know, lots of factions beginning to sort of not break off necessarily, but stray from the Imperium, and then all of a sudden, you know, these factions are going to be sort of forced to, you know, to combat one another because of, you know, their various ideologies and the fact that there just isn't enough galaxy to go around for everyone's ego. So it will be very interesting to see, and likewise, of course, you know, this could set up the fall of some of the Primarchs. Artwork within the new rulebook does point to perhaps Sanguinius being reborn. Who knows? Could be, could not be. We may see the Emperor actually die at some point. Who knows? I mean, that would be a great sort of finale for a galactic civil war, seeing the Emperor finally, you know, these forces being forced back together again to unite because, you know, the unthinkable is finally happening. The Emperor is dying. He will die. You know, like I say, a civil war, a galactic civil war, could be the chance for some proper grade A solid writing from the GW team, and, you know, and a chance to really give the, you know, give the players out there an option to really form some unique factions. You know, what would a faction being led by Dawn look like as opposed to Guilliman? What would a faction being led solely by Leman Russ look like as opposed to Korax? You know, how would, you know, you could have these really specialized forces involving, you know, Astra Militarum and, you know, Space Marines and, you know, perhaps Sisters of Battle if they ever get a new release. You know, you could really have these unique forces, still Imperium technically, but completely unique and outside of what we've ever seen before. And like I say, it's just, this at the moment is very early thinking. It's an idea that can branch a lot of paths. But like I say, little pieces of evidence here and there are starting to add up. We're seeing more and more. We don't know what Belisarius Cawl is going to really, you know, end up doing. We don't know if he has a master plan or if he's just an eccentric. We don't know how long Guilliman's going to tolerate him. Will he tolerate him? Will he be found out? How will the rest of the Imperium deal with this? You know, will there be a point where, you know, they push too much and the Imperium just goes, no, we've had enough. You guys need to go back to where, you know, go back to the, you know, perhaps go back to not being alive sort of thing. It's all up in the air at the moment. We don't know what's going to happen. But like I say, if we can sort of make sure we pick up on any of these little sort of tidbits of information that are being put out of there, anything that's strangely worded or feels, you know, feels like it doesn't quite apply to what we know of within the Imperium, who knows? Anything could happen. But that's just my idea, guys. Anyway, you know, I'll leave it there, and you can just sort of see what you think, and feel free to comment below. But until the next time, guys, thanks very much for watching. I hope you're all well. Hope you're all safe. I'm gonna, you know, I'm gonna go and get ready to go to work in a bit. But you guys take it easy, stay safe, and I will catch you next time on the Scrumpy Kiwi. Take it easy, guys. Bye bye.